hello. President Lockman, trustees, members of the faculty and administration, I'm really honored and humbled by this recognition. From my point of view, Champlain College sets the bar in so many ways. You're deeply connected to Burlington, but you are anything but parochial. You're entrepreneurial and you're collaborative. And I'm amazed by the scope and the seriousness of Champlain's commitment to inclusion and diversity. While a lot of those initiatives in colleges function sporadically or in silos, Champlain's approach appears to be incredibly holistic, embedded across divisions and contexts. And a hearty hello to you, members of Champlain's brilliant class of 2021. So I was doing a little bit of research about you. And according to what the Pew Foundation says, I already like you. You supposedly respect your elders. You get along with your parents. You're the most diverse generation in American history and the most educated. You vote. And you are the same age as my eldest son, and I like him. And clearly, Champlain likes you, too. Marking your first day with robes and tents and speeches and picnics. Now, I do not remember any such fancy pants reception on my first day. I actually recall my grandparents dropping me and a giant steamer trunk at the side of the road, pressing $10 into my hand for a very cheap emergency, and kissing me goodbye. And I think they stopped the car, but I'm not even sure of that. When they'd rounded the corner, my trunk and I climbed 4 flights of stairs to meet my new roommate and the 24 men with whom we would share a bathroom on 1 floor. That, in a nutshell, was my convocation. So when I settled into my dorm, 38, it just sounds so long ago. 38 years ago, I would never have predicted that I would spend the bulk of my life working to advance women's well-being, because I really didn't imagine it would be necessary. When I was in college, women shattered one glass ceiling after another. Sally Ride was the first American woman to go into space. Sandra Day O'Connor was appointed to the Supreme Court, and in 1984, as I stood on the floor of the Democratic Convention, Geraldine Ferraro became the first woman to appear on a major presidential ticket. So it seemed to me that women could do anything. It certainly seemed to me that I could do anything. But I fretted as I donned my cap and gown 4 years later. What would that be? There's a brick wall across from Spear Knurls, onto which someone has painted the words of Frederick Buechner, who's one of my favorite theologians. Vocation, it reads, is the place where our deep gladness meets the world's deep need. I think that some of us pop out of the womb aware of our deep gladness and what we are meant to do. I was not one of those people. But I did know this. More than anything, I wanted to care deeply about what I did. And that came from observing my mother. She was an actress who moved to LA after my parents divorced, and she was, by Hollywood standards, old, 32. She made a fair number of commercials and special appearances on various television shows, but she wasn't as successful as she'd have liked. She did love every minute of it that she was on set. Watching her, what I learned was that work could be a tremendous source of joy, and I wanted that for myself. As it turned out, I found my deep gladness in wanting that kind of joy for everyone. I taught history, not because I cared so very much about history, my apologies to the history professors here, but because it was really thrilling to watch young people come into their own. So if a student struggled in class, I'd be sure to catch their dance recital or their basketball game because I wanted to see them in their element. I wanted them to feel seen by me. And the same impulse drew me to Vermont Works for Women, where much of the programming focused on women who had struggled at work, had limited experience, or who had a prison record. And until then, I understood very little about poverty. I had never set foot in a prison, and I'm really, really embarrassed to admit that I didn't know that so many women lacked access to affordable childcare and even paid sick days. And my God, we were training carpenters, and I have sliced my cheek with a 25-foot tape. That's hard to do. And so I'm really completely unhandy. In some ways, I was incredibly ill-suited for the job. But what I did understand was the desire of women who came through our doors to find work that felt meaningful, that they might love. So you never think, oh, I'll probably stay here 17, 18 years. And I never expected to stay that long at Vermont Works for Women. But somehow that's what I did. I was certainly never bored, perhaps because I was routinely humbled by truths I had somehow missed or ignored, like the incredible unfairness of my own privilege, or the razor's edge on which so many women and families' lives are balanced, or about the enormous courage it can take to plant one's stake in the ground and affirm to anyone who will hear it, and especially those who won't, I am, I will. The work for which I'm being honored today began about a year before you were born. Ironically, that is also almost precisely the time the progress for women slowed down. It does not reflect very well on my career, perhaps. So I'm just going to give you a couple examples of how. In 1999, 3 states were governed by women. Today, there are 4. In 1999, the poverty rate for young women was 12%. Today, it's 5 points higher. In 1999, the wage gap weighed in at 16%. Today, it's, well, 16%. So what does that mean? At the current pace, the wage gap will not close for another 32 years. I may be discouraged by these numbers, but I'm still in the game. I owe that to my mother, too. She lost more parts than she landed. That was the law of averages in that field. And when she didn't get a job, she didn't mask her disappointment. By watching her, I learned to accept that if work can bring joy, it can also bring pain, precisely because it has meaning. And so, to you, members of the class of 2021, has a really nice ring to it. May you discern your deep gladness in this and in the years to follow, and may that deep gladness meet the world's pressing needs. There are so many, but you are so capable. It's what enables me to be wildly optimistic in the face of such challenge. Thank you all very much, members of this community, for an honor that I am very grateful for and means a lot.